Good evening, everyone. This is Michael, and we're going to continue with some work in the destiny of the nations. We began reading about some of these larger countries that have a role. Well, we all have a role. Every nation has a role, but they have a decisive role in the future of humanity. And fortunately, in his book, The Destiny of the Nations, Master DK does deal with the energies of these nations. So many nations have been added to the list since he was writing, some 75 years ago, let's say, something like that. And let's see whether when he begins to write again, he brings out some of the new developments. I think he will. Maybe not every nation, because nations are like people, and there are grown-ups among the nations, just like there are grown-ups among the people. And there are others who are relatively in their adolescence, and maybe even in their childhood. He does list the United States as one of those countries that still has the adolescent traits, and we've been dealing with the United States. And we'll deal with Russia and with the United Kingdom, or Great Britain as he often calls it. So I'd just like to maybe read a little bit. And let's see here. I will do this. Okay. Yes. Just to segue a little bit from page 89, like Russia, this country is in the making, as I have told you elsewhere, and the nation's power shifts as it will, and as it now really is shifting from Washington to New York. The Cancerian influence will lessen steadily. That's the Cancerian influence of Washington, D.C., but of course we have to think about the Cancerian influence of New York as well. Interesting. And it will take its place as an adult among the nations. Its Gemini nature, that's the personality, and its Aquarian soul, notice its nature and soul, how those two words are used, when developed and balanced, which is hardly yet the case, should provide a most remarkable channel for human expression. It will be in an air sign age. The age of Aquarius is an air sign age, with Gemini and Libra accompanying Aquarius. The sole expression of the United States will be Aquarius, which again is not fully the case. Its Gemini personality at the moment, with all of its divisions and contentions and conflicts between high and low and between the pairs of opposites, is very much on display. You will note that none of its zodiacal rulers link it with France, except indirectly through Cancer, which is the polar opposite of Capricorn. One of the rulers of Paris, I think Virgo and Capricorn are ruling Paris, and so we understand that when you have an opposition like Cancer Capricorn, there is a link. Those links are very important because they dictate the way of the future cooperation and also maybe some present difficulties, but they show the way whereby cooperation will be established. So it is for this reason that such a small percentage, relatively speaking, of French people migrate to the United States. It has a closer link with Italy than with France, and hence the large Italian population. For Sagittarius rules both Italy and Washington. Now why Sagittarius? Because it is the personality ruler of Italy. Italy with its sixth-ray soul, and blending then with the United States with its sixth-ray personality. Yeah, and however, it's very interesting that the French Revolution stood for liberty, equality, and fraternity, whatever the abuses may have been as they arose. Now, those three qualities are connected with Aquarius, the soul sign of the United States, liberty, equality, yes, that's Libra, and fraternity with the personality sign, Gemini, of the United States. And of course, finally, Libra will give the great brotherhood towards which we all look. So France really helped the United States get on its feet. And the three lords of liberation were behind the air signs as we understand their use in the modern world. So, and the liberation that came through the lords of liberation really, in a way, saved the world from the oppression of the Axis powers. And I think that later, karmically, the United States returned the favor in the Second World War and was instrumental in the liberation of France from the Nazi occupation. So there is definitely a link, and the gift of the Statue of Liberty was from France, and it is a great symbol of the keynote or the motto of the United States, "I light the way." And France also has this destiny with light, and there will be the liberation of the light of the soul in a scientific manner. So we'll try to blend all these things together so we can understand the interrelations. And with France, is I release the light. Well, look, I light the way and I release the light. Sounds to me like we're dealing with two countries that have a lot to do with the light. So what the Tibetan says is true about the settlement of French people in the United States, but also there are these links, and I think we should be aware of them as they are having much connection with the Lords of Liberation, who basically saved the day. Now, when you're looking at the United States, it has been a country which has, until this point at least, set a good example of what freedom is meant to be. And originality and individuality and compassion as well, with its second ray soul, and of course France with its Pisces soul, will have much to do with the release of the soul energy and the heightening of compassion in humanity. So the astrological ruler of of the United States in the soul nature is Aquarius, with its rulers Uranus, Jupiter, and the Moon. Well, maybe the inventiveness of Uranus, the idea of freedom, maybe unfortunately expanded into the realm almost of license, is a problem. But the Uranian archetype will eventually prevail. Uranus is, after all, even though it is the orthodox ruler of Aquarius, it is still the strongest ruler of Aquarius because it's veiled by the Moon. Jupiter is a second-ray planet, and as the soul of the United States, its second-ray soul, and its Aquarian energy come more into prominence, the great inclusiveness and fellowship of Jupiter will emerge. And as far as transforming the personality possibilities, the Moon is there, veiling Uranus, Neptune, and Vulcan. So we can look to the U.S. in the future as a kind of society that will transform the negative tendencies of the personality and elevate them towards a more archetypal expression. This is the nation. And well, we have, for personality, Gemini. We have the rulers, Mercury, unstable, Venus, in its lower aspect, materialistic and self-satisfying and having to do with money as it rules Taurus. And finally, the Earth. Well, that will be a good thing eventually, but right now it assists with the materialism, which is fighting it out with the higher values within the United States. Now, even though this was written over 70 years ago, so much of it applies even right now. Cancer is the mass consciousness, and it has to do with the sole rulership of the capital, Washington, right now, but it also has to do with the city of New York, which is strongly Cancerian and has been the home of many ethnic groups of immigrants who have somehow in ways retained their kind of original culture. You know, we have Little Italy, we have Chinatown, we have Germantown. You know, in other words, they came and they preserved, they hung on to their own culture, but at the same time it represents a certain embracing quality, and not just material retentiveness. It's something more. In a way, it's backward looking, and in a way, it has to do with the domination of mass consciousness, which is a real menace at this time. The rulership of the higher qualities of Cancer is not yet with us, the whole being seen as one, but at least it contributes to the melting pot effect. So, although we have the glamour and materialism of the masses, we also have the possibility of a great embracing melting pot and sensitivity. Sagittarius, part of Washington, D.C., and DK talks about the tendency of the U.S. to adhere to its decisions, maybe when Gemini is not so powerful, because it does bring instability, and let instability do its work. And in the present drama going on, deciding the fate of the nation and its relationship to other nations, Gemini individuals are very prominent, for better or for worse. And oftentimes, at the moment, given the instability that that sign promotes, it's for the worst. However, the Earth will, the Earth rulership has a lot to do with, eventually, with helping the ecological situation, even though at the present time the United States seems the farthest of many nations from doing that. There's also a certain militarism of Mars and the investment in foreign wars, and maybe that will begin to subside. Certainly it feeds the idealism, Mars and Sagittarius. It's actually the hierarchical ruler. So this has to do really with the reorientation of the lunar lords, which have to be lifted above their usual inclinations and their usual tendencies and desires. Some astrologers feel that Sagittarius is, after all, the rising sign of the United States and not Gemini, and they have some justification for that. The soul ray, love, wisdom, and basically a very strong love wisdom, if it can be released. And the fight in the United States is so intense because it does seem like the returning Christ will use the U.S., who knows, maybe as his headquarters, because it is the major headquarters of the United Nations. But the real problem is the personality ray, and that can be so narrow and contentious. And basically, the whole idea of America above all and America first, and the kind of devotion to certain ideals regarding democracy and the attempt to impose them on others, this is problematic. Also, in the United States, a large group of souls who are not yet fully developed, or really a long way from becoming aspiring souls. The soul in incarnation is not working so very well, and that soul is still attached to outer things. This is a problem, and we have two different kinds of people in the United States. One group far less developed in terms of experience with the factor of intelligence, and another group maybe more intelligent and of having a longer developmental period, and maybe quite a few of those who are the moon chain humanity. After all, so interesting that the United States was the first to reach the moon. Of course, this can indicate a backward trend, and it can, in another way, indicate too much of the mass consciousness, which is fed by the solar plexus, as that solar plexus is stimulated by its sixth ray personality. So these energies are pretty much what's operating, and we can, I don't think we're going to do it now, we'll do it at another occasion. We will talk about the indirect influences via the planetary rulers of the major signs, and we'll talk about their addition to the major energies that we've just gone over. So with the addition of these indirect influences, we're going to have many conditioning influences. And also the mixture of races is very prominent in this melting pot of the United States. He says of these influences there are 11 in all, and the Earth presents two aspects, and the Moon veils both Vulcan and Uranus. And he doesn't mention Neptune, but the kind of wish life, often materialistic or naively idealistic, of Neptune is there as well. So I think, there's enough to think about right there. And I'll just say that this is the end of our reading for today. End of reading in DON. And it is the 11th of July. Well, it almost doesn't make any difference where one begins, but we'll try to take these nations into consideration in a more detailed manner that DK does offer us. As a matter of fact, it's really the science of international relations, both personality relations, which are more common, and soul relations, which sometimes spring up and promise well for the future when the nations do actually begin to represent the soul of humanity. Now, some of you may be familiar with astrology, and others maybe not as much, but at the same time we're learning. And when we study glamour and we study the science of triangles, the astrological, rheological factors will always enter. Master DK is the great expert in these energies and their interrelations, and so if we want to learn from him and understand his larger system, we'll have to know a little something about esoteric astrology and, of course, the new science of rheology, which holds the psychological key to understanding the individual, the group, and humanity as a whole and its place. So the astrological factor will be constant, and basically what we're going to see here in these indirect influences is an excellent way of interpreting the horoscope of the individual and not just of the nation. It's probably some of the most complete interpretations that Master DK has given. So we can only hope and work towards, in this particular case, the emergence of the second ray soul, the major energy of the United States, just as we'll work towards the emergence of that same second ray soul for the United Kingdom, and a good expression of the seventh ray soul for Russia. And if those three nations, now very challenged, very challenged indeed, if they get it right, the fate of humanity will be far more positive, and positive sooner than otherwise would be the case. Okay. So that's, a little bit about that. Now, basically, I'd just like to keep it simple. We live in a very troubled world right now, and a great threat exists with this pandemic, and it looks like Sanat Kumara is behind the process, attempting to adjust the attitudes, ways of living, and even the physical forms of humanity so that they are more suitable to the kinds of energies which are coming. A much healthier human race is on the way. Under the seventh ray, we've been told by the Tibetan. And what we want to do is to think first in our little meditation here of the soul of humanity. What is that really? And in what way are we all a part of that one soul of humanity? Because when the soul of humanity can begin to emerge, it will mean that a certain proportion of the human race is on the borderland of entering the fifth kingdom of nature, the kingdom of souls, on the borderland of entering the hall of wisdom. And as Master DK's ashram, which is, I think, one of the preliminarily externalizing ashrams, has for its particular energy the energy of right human relations, then we will, by following his teaching, really contribute to an improvement between all human beings in the harmony and love and wisdom of their relations. So let us have that attitude towards all our fellow human beings, whether in the body or out of the body, that they are souls within the one soul. And no matter how evil the personality may seem, after corrective measures are taken, and some of them are very drastic and long-lasting, the presence of the soul means that every human monad is redeemable, no matter what it has wandered into through error and through prolonged selfishness, which is really a kind of ignorance. So redemption is on its way. That's the point. And wherever you live, your country has higher qualities which can be shared with all humanity, and which can represent the great soul of humanity. So think about the soul qualities of your nation and how to bring them into expression. What can you think about? What can you meditate about? What can you say and do and write, and by whatever other means, to help bring the soul of your nation into greater expression? We'll take some moments of silence to ponder that. I mean, we may think we're just, little people, and in a way we are, but as souls, we are much more. And there really is only one soul of humanity. One soul, really, in the entire universe. And we are, all of us, could we but realize it, deeply identified on a high level with that soul, even though we forget and we often live as if we are simply personalities. And when you have, in a way, decided what your contribution can be to the emergence of the higher qualities, the soul qualities of your nation, just focus on that decision, that revelation. Perhaps you can create for yourself a kind of little mantra that can remind you of what you can do to bring forward the soul of your nation from an esoteric point of view often, and sometimes from a more externalized point of view. And finally it will, all come down basically to the kind of relations that we have with our fellow human beings. I was, Master DK is so responsible for wonderful teaching. And so it was almost a surprise to me that the overarching quality of his externalizing ashram is right human relations. One has to be rather sensitive to promote those types of relations, and it certainly helps if one knows the energies and forces which are involved, so that selflessness can overcome selfishness, so the soul can overcome the personality, or at least use it as an instrument of expression. And if we succeed in this individually and in our little progressive groups, we certainly will contribute to the emergence of the soul in our particular nation. We can each play a part. Let's together say the mantram of the will of our planetary logos is that love wisdom, the quality of its soul, be spread abroad and help to overcome the liabilities of its third-ray materialistic personality. In the center of the will of God I stand. Naught shall deflect my will from His. I implement that will by love. I turn towards the field of service. I, the triangle divine, work out that will within the square and serve my fellow men. In these matters of right international relations within the soul of humanity, which is within the soul of the planetary logos, we can ask ourselves, how well are we succeeding? How selflessly can we act? How esoterically and effectively can we work? And can we really align with planetary purpose, working out through the planetary plan, so that that purpose and plan somehow guide our lives? It's a very strong thing to be guided by the purpose that emanates from Shambhala. And it's so interesting that not only is the theme of Master DK's ashram right human relations, but that is the temporary or present theme within Shambhala. Right human relations, according to the fate of human development and human response, so will the plan succeed or fail, or at least fail to materialize in a hoped-for, timely manner. And all of this is in the service of the great sacrificing Lord, the Lord Maitreya, who is a great example of sacrifice, even as his teacher, Sanat Kumara, is called the Great Sacrifice. And so we remind ourselves why we have gathered. And we say together, "We have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya. Be with us." And we know that wherever two or three are gathered in his name, there he will be in presence. So let us never forget that the reappearance of the Christ, supported by his externalizing hierarchy, is the main theme on our planet at this time. And that all of our work here with evoking the soul of our nation and the soul of the kingdom of humanity, it's all part of this great event through which the soul of our planet is emerging. And especially through the reappearance of the Christ and the externalization of the hierarchy. So, as we prepare to close our meditation and our attempted group assistance in bringing forward that great energy, the soul of humanity, aided by the distinctive, qualitatively distinctive soul energies of each nation, we will sound the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, everyone, for gathering for our work here on evoking the soul of nations. And we will continue now. Quite shortly we'll be having another meeting of the Esoteric United Nations. Every new moon we have one. And we'll also have the opportunity for those of you who have not yet joined and wish to join to take your pledge, your commitment to the process in an ongoing manner. So we'll notify you of when that will be, and so we'll have one meeting for the pledge taking, and then we'll go into our monthly meeting where all those who have made their commitment can participate. These are big issues. They are oftentimes political issues and social issues. And DK says they're very important because they condition the lives of so many people. So if you feel inclined to join us in that way and you have not yet joined this effort, then you will have your opportunity. And tomorrow we will, also on the evening schedule, have our work in attracting money for hierarchical purposes, because, as DK says, it is the great issue. It is the crux of the problem regarding the reappearance of the Christ. And in that wonderful little book, there's a whole chapter about the stewardship of resources so that the Christ can appear. He will gauge when that time is. And what it will mean when he appears is that that portion of humanity who can at this time take the first initiation has taken the first initiation. So we hope to see you tomorrow evening, 5 p.m. GMT. And also at our live link, our YouTube live link, where you're tuned in right now. So lots of love and many blessings from Tuija and myself, and from the whole team that is attempting to bring you these webinars and broadcasts. We're told the teaching will go forth over the radio. Well, we have certainly an enhanced radio these days, and we can keep the teaching in the air and available to many who can benefit from it. So we'll be in touch with you. All the best to you, and we will continue. And bye for now.